Ambassador Veltar pushed through the heavy doors of the old archive chamber, deep beneath the Galactic Council's central spire. Dust particles danced in the dim light as his footsteps echoed against the metal floors. He had been assigned the boring job of organizing ancient data crystals, a task usually given to junior staff members as punishment. But everyone else was busy with the upcoming trade negotiations, so the job fell to him. The archive room stretched endlessly in all directions, filled with towers of glowing data crystals that contained the galaxy's recorded history. Most of these files were centuries old, dealing with forgotten wars, dead civilizations, and outdated trade agreements. Veltar sighed as he picked up another crystal, expecting to find more meaningless bureaucratic records. The crystal felt different in his hands. It was heavier than the others, and its surface was covered with strange markings he didn't recognize. When he inserted it into the reading device, nothing happened at first. The screen remained blank, showing only an error message about missing. Encryption keys died. Veltar was about to move on to the next crystal when he noticed something odd. The error message contained a sequence of numbers that looked familiar. He had seen them before in his security training years ago. They were part of an old diplomatic code, one that hadn't been used in decades. His curiosity got the better of him. He typed in the old code, not really expecting anything to happen. The screen flickered once, twice, then suddenly came to life with a bright flash of light. Warning messages appeared and disappeared so quickly he couldn't read them. Then, the holographic projector in the center of the room activated, filling the air with three-dimensional images. What Veltar saw made him stumble backward in shock. The images showed a blue and green planet that he recognized immediately from his history lessons. It was Earth, the human homeworld. But according to everything he had learned in school, Earth was supposed to be a dead, lifeless rock floating in space. The footage showed something completely different. Massive cities covered the planet's surface, their buildings reaching toward the sky like metal and glass mountains. The architecture was unlike anything in the known galaxy. The buildings seemed to grow and change shape almost like living things. Bridges connected the structures in impossible ways, forming a web of walkways that stretched across entire continents. But the most shocking part was the people. Humans walked through the streets, sat in parks, and worked in buildings. They were very much alive, not extinct as the official records claimed. Veltar watched in amazement as the camera focused on one particular human standing on a balcony high above the city. The human was a young man with dark hair that moved gently in the morning breeze. He wore simple clothes and held a small device in his hands, reading something on its glowing screen. The sunlight caught his face as he looked out over the city, and Veltar could see that he was completely unaware of being watched. At the bottom of the holographic display, Veltar noticed a timestamp. His heart began to race as he read the date. This footage wasn't from the distant past. It was from last week. With shaking hands, Veltar accessed the Council's official historical database. He searched for information about humanity and Earth, already knowing what he would find. The records were clear and had never been questioned. 200 years ago, the human race had been completely wiped out during the 9th Sector War. Their planet had been left uninhabitable, and no humans had survived the devastating conflict. But the evidence floating in the air before him told a different story entirely. Not only had humans survived, but they had built a civilization that seemed more advanced than anything the Galactic Council had ever achieved. Their cities were larger, their technology appeared more sophisticated, and their population seemed to be thriving. Veltar sat down heavily in the nearest chair, his mind racing to understand what this meant. Someone had been lying to the entire galaxy for 2 centuries. The question was who, and why? He looked around the empty archive room, suddenly feeling very alone. The weight of this discovery pressed down on him like a physical force. If humans were still alive, if Earth was still inhabited, then everything the galaxy believed about the past was wrong. The history books, the memorials, the treaties signed in humanity's memory, all of it was based on a lie. As he stared at the holographic images of the thriving human civilization, Veltar realized that his boring assignment had just become the most important discovery in galactic history. But it also meant that he was now in possession of the Council's biggest secret, a secret that someone had gone to great lengths to hide. The young human on the balcony continued reading his device, unaware that his existence had just shattered. Everything an alien ambassador thought he knew about the universe. Veltar knew that his life would never be the same again. Veltar couldn't sleep anymore. Every night for the past week, he had returned to the archive room using his security clearance to access files that most council members didn't even know existed. The discovery of living humans had opened a door to secrets that ran deeper than he had ever imagined. He sat surrounded by dozens of data crystals, their soft glow the only light in the dark room. Each crystal contained pieces of a puzzle that was slowly forming a terrifying picture. Communications between high-ranking officials, budget reports for secret projects, and surveillance data that went back decades. The more he read, the more his hands shook. The first major clue came from an old financial record. 200 years ago, just before the supposed Ninth Sector War, the Council had spent enormous amounts of money on something called Project Silent Garden. The budget was hidden in routine maintenance costs and emergency funds, but Veltar had learned to spot these tricks during his years in government service. Project Silent Garden's real purpose became clear when he found the technical specifications. It wasn't a weapon or a defense system. It was a massive network of sensors and communication jammers designed to surround an entire solar system. The target system was clearly marked in the documents: Sol System, home of Earth. But why would the Council want to cut off communication with humanity? Veltar found his answer in a series of intercepted human transmissions from just before the supposed war. The messages talked about incredible scientific breakthroughs that made his alien mind struggle to understand them. Humans had discovered how to make their bodies live forever, not just for a few extra centuries like some alien species could manage, but truly forever. Their scientists had learned to repair and rebuild living tissue at the cellular level, making death from old age a thing of the past. The implications were staggering. Even more impressive was their energy technology. While the rest of the galaxy still relied on burning fossil fuels or dangerous nuclear reactions, humans had created power systems that actually helped their planet instead of harming it. Their cities drew energy from the Earth itself, from the wind and water, in ways that made the environment healthier rather than damaged. Veltar understood why this would terrify the Council's ruling families. For thousands of years, these ancient bloodlines had controlled galactic trade by making sure that resources remained scarce and technology stayed primitive. They sold short-lived products that needed constant replacement. They controlled the fuel sources that powered civilization. If humanity's innovations spread throughout the galaxy, these families would lose everything. The next set of files contained the actual plan, written in the private communication logs of High Counselor Drakmor himself. Veltar recognized the writing style immediately. Drakmor was known for his careful, detailed planning and his complete lack of conscience when it came to protecting Council interests. The plan was brilliant in its simplicity and horrible in its scope. First, the Council would create a fake war between humanity and one of their own member species. They would use their media control to spread stories about human aggression and the need for defensive action. During the chaos of this pretend conflict, they would deploy the sensor network around Earth's solar system. Once the sensors were in place, Earth would be completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy. No communications could get in or out. To everyone else, it would appear that humanity had been destroyed in the war. The Council would hold memorial services, build monuments, and encourage the galaxy to remember the tragic loss of an entire species. But secretly, the sensors would be watching everything that happened on Earth. The Council would study human technology from a distance, learning how their innovations worked. Then they would slowly introduce watered-down versions of these technologies to the galaxy, claiming credit for the discoveries and maintaining their monopoly on advanced science. The plan had worked perfectly for 2 centuries. The galaxy mourned humanity's loss and then moved on. Meanwhile, many of the technological advances that had improved life throughout the galaxy over the past 200 years had actually come from stolen human research. Veltar found proof of this theft in the surveillance files that were still being collected. The images showed humans continuing to develop incredible technologies that the Council couldn't even begin to copy properly. In one laboratory, he watched a young human woman named Lee So-young working with plants that seemed to defy the laws of nature. The plants in her laboratory grew in perfect spirals that reached toward the ceiling, their leaves glowing with their own internal light. According to the intercepted research notes, these plants could produce more energy than they consumed while also cleaning the air and soil around them. Lee So-young's work represented a breakthrough in biological engineering that made the Council's best scientists look like children playing with simple toys. But what disturbed Veltar most was realizing how long this deception had been maintained. Generations of Council members had participated in the lie. His own teachers, his mentors, even his friends had all been part of keeping humanity's existence secret. The entire foundation of galactic society was built on this massive deception. As dawn light began to filter through the archive room's small windows, Veltar sat surrounded by the evidence of the greatest conspiracy in galactic history. He now knew the truth, but he also knew that revealing it would destroy everything he had ever believed about his government and his society. Veltar knew he was committing the biggest crime of his life as he slipped through the shadows of the Council's military docking bay. The stealth ship he had chosen was small and fast, designed for secret missions that the Council never officially acknowledged. His hands trembled as he entered the fake authorization codes he had learned to create during his years in government service. The ship's engines hummed quietly as he guided it away from the station. He had filed a false flight plan claiming he was investigating trade route violations in a distant sector. It would buy him a few days before anyone noticed he was missing, but after that he would be branded as a traitor and hunted across the galaxy. The journey to Earth's solar system took 18 hours of careful navigation. Veltar had to avoid the major shipping lanes and Council patrol routes. As he got closer to his destination, his sensors began detecting the edge of the massive sensor network that surrounded the Sol system. The barrier was invisible to normal space traffic, but his stolen military ship could see the web of detection devices and communication jammers that had kept Earth isolated for 2 centuries. Getting through the sensor net was like threading a needle while blindfolded. Veltar used every trick he had learned during his military training years ago, flying in the shadows of asteroids and timing his movements to match the rotation patterns of the surveillance devices. Sweat dripped down his face as he finally passed through the inner perimeter and saw Earth hanging in space before him. The planet looked exactly like it had in the archive footage, but seeing it with his own eyes was completely different. The blue oceans sparkled in the sunlight, and the green continents were covered with cities that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. This was supposed to be a dead world, but it was more alive than any planet he had ever seen. Veltar's communication system had been modified with the old diplomatic frequencies that he had found in the ancient archives. He wasn't even sure if they would still work after all these years. With shaking hands, he activated the transmitter and sent out the traditional greeting that ambassadors had used for centuries when approaching a new world. The response came, so quickly that it startled him. "Unknown vessel, this is Dr. Kim Jae-min of the Earth Defense Coalition. Please identify yourself and state your purpose." The voice spoke in perfect galactic standard, the common language used throughout the Council territories. Veltar was so surprised that he almost forgot to answer. When he finally found his voice, he explained who he was and why he had come. There was a long silence on the other end, and he began to worry that he had made a terrible mistake. Then Dr. Kim's voice returned, and this time there was something that sounded almost like amusement in his tone. "Ambassador Veltar, we've been wondering when one of you would finally visit. We have landing coordinates ready for you. Welcome to Earth." They knew. Somehow, impossibly, they had been expecting him. The landing pad was hidden beneath what looked like a peaceful garden in the middle of a sprawling city. Only when Veltar's ship was directly overhead did the ground open up to reveal a sophisticated underground facility. As he stepped out of his ship, he was greeted by a human man who looked to be middle-aged with kind eyes and graying hair. "I'm Dr. Kim Jae-min," the human said with a warm smile. "Thank you for making the journey. I know it wasn't easy getting through our security perimeter." Veltar followed Dr. Kim through corridors that seemed to be carved from living rock. The walls glowed softly with their own light, and the air smelled of flowers and growing things. They entered a large room where holographic displays showed images that made Veltar's eyes widen in amazement. "Before you ask your questions," Dr. Kim said, "let me answer the biggest one. Yes, we know about the Council's surveillance network. We detected it within 30 years of its deployment. Our deep space monitoring stations have been tracking every spy probe and every data transmission sent back to your government." The holographic displays showed the proof. Earth's own sensors were far more advanced than anything the Council possessed. They had been watching the Watchers for nearly 2 centuries, recording every secret transmission and mapping every hidden surveillance device. "But why didn't you reveal yourselves?" Veltar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Kim gestured to the displays, which now showed images of Earth's incredible achievements. Cities floated gracefully above the clouds, their buildings growing and changing like living organisms. Underwater colonies housed millions of people while actually improving the ocean environments around them. Space stations orbited the planet like artificial moons, each one a complete ecosystem supporting thousands of residents. "We chose to remain dead to your galaxy," Dr. Kim explained. "Why reveal ourselves and face the politics, the fear, and the attempts to control us? Here, cut off from galactic interference, we could develop our civilization without outside pressure. We could perfect our technologies and build the kind of society we actually wanted." At that moment, another human entered the room. She was a woman with intelligent eyes and an air of quiet authority. Dr. Kim introduced her as Choi De-young, Earth's Minister of Xenological Affairs, the person responsible for dealing with alien contact. "Ambassador Veltar," she said with a slight bow, "we've had 200 years to perfect what we started. Would you like to see what humanity can really do?" Choi De-young walked ahead of Veltar through corridors that seemed to bend and flow like water frozen in time. The walls were alive with soft patterns of light that moved in rhythm with their footsteps. Everything around him challenged what he thought he knew about construction and design. Their first stop was a medical facility that looked more like a garden than a hospital. Patients lay on beds that seemed to be grown rather than built, surrounded by plants that glowed with gentle healing light. Veltar watched in amazement as a human doctor worked with what looked like living machines no bigger than dust particles. "These are nanobiological healers," Da-young explained as they observed a patient whose broken arm was being repaired in real time. "They work with the body's own systems to fix any damage. Broken bones, damaged organs, even genetic diseases can be cured completely." The tiny machines moved through the patient's bloodstream like microscopic construction workers, rebuilding tissue and bone with perfect precision. Within minutes, the patient was flexing his completely healed arm and thanking the medical staff. Veltar had never seen anything like it in all his travels across the galaxy. Next, they visited an energy production facility that defied everything he understood about power generation. Instead of the massive polluting plants he was familiar with, this facility looked like a peaceful forest. Trees with metallic bark reached toward the sky, their leaves shimmering with captured sunlight. Underground, root systems that weren't quite plant and weren't quite machine drew energy from the Earth itself. "These biological power systems don't just generate electricity," Da-young said as they walked through the artificial forest. "They actually clean the air, enrich the soil, and provide habitat for wildlife. The more energy we produce, the healthier our planet becomes." Veltar touched one of the metallic trees and felt a gentle vibration running through it. The tree was alive, but it was also a sophisticated piece of technology. The combination was so seamless that he couldn't tell where biology ended and engineering began. Their tour continued to a space elevator that carried them up to orbital habitats that looked like miniature worlds floating in space. Each habitat was a complete ecosystem with its own weather patterns, forests, lakes, and even small mountains. Thousands of humans lived and worked in these space-based communities, but they had never given up the natural environment that their species needed to thrive. "How do you share all this knowledge?" Veltar asked as they watched children playing in a zero-gravity park while their parents tended to floating gardens. A new voice answered him. That's the real secret. Veltar turned to see a middle-aged human man with kind eyes and calloused hands. I'm Song Hyun Woo, Director of Human Development. Our technology isn't really our advantage. Our cooperation is. Song Hyun Woo led them to a massive library that existed both in physical form and as a holographic network accessible from anywhere on Earth or in the orbital habitats. Every discovery, every innovation, every piece of knowledge is shared freely among all humans. When one person learns something new, everyone benefits immediately. Veltar compared this to his own experience with the Galactic Council, where different species and even different organizations within the same species jealously guarded their secrets. Scientific breakthroughs were patented and sold. Military advances were classified. Even basic medical knowledge was controlled by powerful corporations. While your species spend time and energy competing with each other, Song Hyun-woo continued, we spend that same energy cooperating. This means our rate of innovation is much faster than anything you've achieved in the galaxy. But the biggest revelation was yet to come. Da Young led Veltar to a communication center where humans were in contact with civilizations across the galaxy. The holographic displays showed species that Veltar recognized from his history lessons. But these species were supposed to be extinct. The Zephyrians weren't destroyed by solar flares 70 years ago, Da Young said as images of beautiful, crystal cities appeared in the air around them. They're living in the outer rim territories and cities we helped them design and build. Their crystal technology combined with our biological systems has created some of the most beautiful architecture in the galaxy. More images appeared, showing underwater cities inhabited by the aquatic collective. Another species the council claimed had died from a devastating plague. We helped them find new ocean worlds and taught them how to modify their environment to be even more perfect for their needs. Veltar felt his understanding of galactic history crumbling around him. How many species are still alive? Dozens, Da Young replied. Every time the council declared a species extinct because they had developed something that threatened the established power structure, we found them and offered our help. We've been building a secret network of thriving civilizations for over a century. The communication displays showed regular contact between Earth and hidden colonies throughout the galaxy. Species that were supposed to be dead were not only alive, but prospering with human assistance. They had developed technologies that surpassed anything the Council possessed, but they had chosen to remain hidden rather than face the Council's attempts to control or destroy them. The Council didn't just lie about humanity, Song Hyun-woo said quietly. They orchestrated the fake destruction of any species that threatened their control over galactic civilization. Veltar stared at the evidence surrounding him, feeling overwhelmed by the scope of the deception. His entire understanding of galactic history was wrong. The council he had served faithfully for decades was responsible for hiding the greatest collection of thriving civilizations the galaxy had ever seen. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Kim Jae-min looked at Veltar with a calm expression that seemed to hide years of careful planning. The alien ambassador stood surrounded by holographic displays, showing the secret network of supposedly extinct civilizations, his mind still struggling to process everything he had learned. "What do you want from me?" Veltar asked again, expecting to be asked to spy on the council or help with some complex plan of revenge. Dr. Kim's answer surprised him completely. "Nothing," he said with a gentle smile that reached his eyes. "We're ready to reveal ourselves to the galaxy. We just wanted you to know the truth first, so you could choose what to do with the knowledge." De Young stepped forward and handed Veltar a small device that looked like a combination of technology and living tissue. "This contains copies of all the evidence you've seen today, the surveillance records, the communication logs, the proof of the Council's deception. Whether you use it or not is entirely up to you." Veltar stared at the device in his hands. It felt warm, almost alive, and he could sense the enormous importance of the information it contained. "You're not going to force me to help you?" "Force?" Song Hyun-woo laughed softly. "That's exactly the kind of thinking that got the galaxy into this mess. We don't force anyone to do anything. We offer cooperation and let people choose for themselves." Dr. Kim glanced at a timepiece on his wrist. In approximately 6 hours at 1200 Galactic Standard Time, humanity will announce its return to the galactic community. We thought you should have the chance to be somewhere safe when that happens. Veltar felt a chill run down his spine. What exactly are you planning to do? We're going to say hello. Da-Young replied simply. 6 hours later, Veltar stood in the emergency assembly chamber of the Galactic Council, the evidence device clutched in his sweating hands. He had barely made it back to the Council homeworld in time, and his sudden appearance had caused quite a stir among the other ambassadors. High Counselor Drakmor himself had demanded to know where Veltar had been. At exactly 1200 Galactic Standard Time, every communication system in the galaxy activated simultaneously. Emergency broadcasts interrupted regular programming on every world, every space station, and every ship. The message was simple and was delivered in hundreds of different languages. Greetings, galactic citizens. This is humanity, speaking to you from Earth. The reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated. We return to the galactic community offering friendship, medical aid, environmental restoration, and freely shared knowledge to all species who wish to work together for a better future. The emergency assembly erupted in chaos. Counselors shouted questions and accusations while their assistants frantically tried to verify if the broadcast was real. But their confusion turned to stunned silence as the chamber's transparent dome revealed something that made everyone stop talking. A massive ship was descending through the clouds above the Council homeworld. It was unlike any vessel anyone had ever seen. The hull seemed to pulse with its own inner light, displaying patterns that shifted and flowed like living skin. The ship moved with organic grace, as if it were swimming through the air rather than flying. High Counselor Drakmor's face went completely white as reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. The ships weren't just appearing above the Council homeworld. Thousands of vessels had materialized simultaneously above every major world, trade station, and colony in known space. They had bypassed every defense system, avoided every sensor, net, and appeared without warning in the most secure star systems in the galaxy. But the most shocking reports were yet to come. The ships weren't all human. Mixed in with the organic-looking human vessels were craft that belonged to species the galaxy thought were extinct. Crystal ships of the Zephyrians gleamed like frozen starlight. The flowing, water-like vessels of the aquatic collective moved in perfect formation with their human allies. Dozens of supposedly dead civilizations had returned to the galaxy at the same moment. Veltar stood up slowly and activated the evidence device Da-Young had given him. The chamber's holographic systems came to life, displaying centuries of secret communications, surveillance footage, and proof of the Council's massive deception. His voice shook as he began to speak, but his words were clear and strong. Fellow counselors, I have discovered the truth about humanity's supposed extinction and about many other species we believed were lost. The Council has been lying to the galaxy for 2 centuries. As chaos erupted around him again, Veltar continued to present the evidence. The secret surveillance network, the fake wars, the hidden monitoring of human technological development. Every detail of the conspiracy was laid bare for the entire assembly to see. Through the dome above, he could see more ships arriving. Not just human vessels now, but passenger craft from across the hidden network of surviving civilizations. Representatives from dozens of species that were supposed to be extinct were coming to reintroduce themselves to a galaxy that had mourned their loss. Meanwhile, on Earth, Lee So-young worked quietly in her laboratory, designing new biological systems that could help repair damaged ecosystems across the galaxy. Her plants glowed with gentle energy as they cleaned the air and enriched the soil around them. She smiled as she received messages from scientists on dozens of worlds, eager to learn about her research and share their own discoveries. In another facility, Park Min-ho coordinated with the newly revealed civilizations, planning collaborative projects that would benefit everyone. The work of building a better galaxy had finally begun. The Council's biggest secret had become the galaxy's greatest hope for the future.